In One Piece, the transition of generations isn't just a theme, it's a law of nature. Every generation has their time, and once their clock runs out, it's on them to either pave the way and embrace the new generation, or to refuse and their place is taken by force. It's also no coincidence that the main villain transcends this fundamental pattern. All of this is part of Oda's philosophy, and we will dissect it. Every generation had their big players. The first generation had Joy Boy, Davy Jones and Emu. The old generation had Roger, Zebek, Garp, Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and so on. And the new generation has Luffy, Blackbeard, Kobe, Zoro, Law, etc. There's also a generation in between, including Shanks, Mihawk and Dragon. They're definitely leaning more into the new generation than the old. Still, I find it difficult to put them into the same generation as Luffy. In German, there's a word called Zeitgeist, which translates to the spirit of time. It describes the defining intellectual, moral, social moods and attitudes of a specific time period. Each Zeitgeist has a different time period. The world of One Piece consists 99% of NPCs and 1% of big players. The opposing goals, attitudes and moves they make, and them clashing against each other, directs the world. Roger and Garp defeating Zebek, which led to the shatter of the Rocks pirates, the world government eliminating O'Hara, Shanks stopping the war, Luffy defeating Kaido, Kid and Law defeating Big Mom, and so on. All of these decisions shaped the curse of the One Piece world. The big players are, so to say, the representation of the Zeitgeist. The Zeitgeist of characters in One Piece isn't bound to personal age. Blackbeard, for example, was born around the same time as Shanks, but his time as a big player started a lot later. I also believe it was no coincidence that Kid Buggy suddenly fell ill and Shanks took care of him shortly before the Roger Pirates set out to find the One Piece. Their time simply hadn't come yet. Another very important attribute of the Zeitgeist is that it changes. It builds up, it reaches its peak, but then it dies and is replaced by a new Zeitgeist. And that cycle goes on forever. For the world of One Piece, the big players have a time period they're tapped in. But at some point, the new generation representing the new Zeitgeist arises and pushes away the old generation. Oda revealed part of his philosophy through his characters. All the rather good characters from the old generation, whether pirate or admiral, accepted that their time was over and started to pave the way for the new generation. For example, Whitebeard made his last move by trying to save Ace. He knew that his time was coming to an end. He needed medical support the whole time, and he wasn't able to use any haki. Whitebeard then sacrificed himself for his crew to escape, and ordered to protect Luffy no matter the cost. Garp was the last major character of the old generation who continued the work he started a long time ago. And he was also the last one to pave the way for the ones coming after him. The Garp situation was different, because I think he originally planned Dragon to one day replace him. But Dragon turned his back on the world government. Kuzan, his other student, did his own thing as an admiral and left. Therefore, I think Garp didn't know who could possibly replace him until he became the mentor of Kobe. Garp explicitly elaborated that if one has to be left behind, it must be him, because the future belongs to the new generation. Garp acted and thought similar to Whitebeard. On Hachinosu he gave everything to protect the new generation. But on the other hand, there are also characters which didn't want to accept that their time was over. For example, Big Mom and Kaido. Both of them were evil, and they didn't embrace the new generation at all. It was actually the opposite. They tried to break them, still believing they were the ones to find the One Piece. Kaido once said that Joy Boy is the one who will defeat him, which became reality. but after his own prophecy became true, he expressed that he secretly still hoped to be Joy Boy. Neither Kaido nor Big Mom were willing to give up their positions voluntarily the way Garp and Whitebeard did. Oda showed two different attitudes towards the new generation and the own time coming to an end. But there's one crew I want to highlight in particular, the Roger crew. Or to be more specific, all the people who were in contact with the One Piece itself. They all accepted that their time as active pirates was over. All of them had full trust for the future, knowing what would happen. Roger was terminally ill, as we know. The One Piece was his final ambition. After reaching his goal, he found peace with his time being over. And his very last action, moments before his execution, Roger himself called out the new generation of pirates. Rayleigh and Gaban also withdrew from their former lives. The Roger pirates dissolved and they went on to live a quiet life. Rayleigh and Gaban are in my opinion the most interesting ones so far, because both of them were still very strong. Many years later, Rayleigh was still able to fight against Kizaru without any difficulties. And anyone who reads the manga knows that Gaban is on a similar level. If they wanted to, they could have continued to turn the world upside down, trying to defeat admirals, the Gorosei, and so on. But both of them resigned anyways, which shows that it's not just the loss of power which might force you to step back. They found out about the truth of the world, the upcoming incarnation of Nika, and both of them accepted that their main journey was over, stepping from the first row into the second. Especially Rayleigh embraces the new generation the way only few others do. He protected Luffy and became his mentor. Oden, another member who found the One Piece, was able to die with a smile because he also knew about the future and the new generation freeing Wano. Shanks, who also appreciates the new generation, sacrificed his arm for Luffy. With the current manga situation, we are now able to put the pieces together, and there were more reasons for his sacrifice, but he explicitly waited for Luffy to do it. Marco is similar to Rayleigh. Although he actively fought against King and Queen, he too said that he would now let the new generation take the lead. If we're talking about the people who were in contact with the One Piece, we also have to take a look at the first generation and the one who wrote the pornglyphs in first place, Joy Boy. We still know close to nothing about him, and I want to keep this video spoiler free, so I won't talk about the current reveals in the manga. But it stands to reason that Joy Boy at some point also realized that his time was about to end, and therefore he had to leave something behind for the future generations. The road pornglyphs, the One Piece, all the information about the Forgotten Century, his haki inside the ancient giant, and the information about the second coming of Nika. A little add-on, it's very likely that there was an important generation before Joy Boy, Imu and Davy Jones, containing the original Nika and a possible counterpart of him. The breakdown by generation is based on the knowledge we got so far. Joy Boy probably made all the preparations for the future generations, so that they're one day able to free the world from the manipulation of Imu. Since we're on the subject, let's talk about Imu. Because Imu is different from everyone we have seen so far. Because as it seems, Imu is immortal. The only immortal character in the verse we know about so far. Imu is the secret king of the world, which makes the world government a representation and an extension of himself. He never had to prepare for a future generation, and he also doesn't want to step back from his position. He does everything in his power to prevent any danger for himself or his kingdom. Imu gave the Gorosei their powers and eliminated at least 2 islands, just that the truth about him doesn't come out. Imu, as one of the main antagonists of the series, opposes almost everything Oda wrote in terms of transitions of generations. Imu ruled the world for 800 years. With his abilities, presumed immortality, and his successful manipulation of history, Imu was able to stay in his position for such a long time. But from what we now learned about Oda's philosophy, it's just a matter of time until Imu is forced to step back, even if he doesn't want to. He tried to overcome the cycle of generations, and he was successful for 800 years, but in the end he will face the same fate as Big Mom and Kaido. We have now covered every major generational transition. Currently, the Zeitgeist of Luffy, Blackbeard, Kobe, and so on is on its way to reach its peak, probably fully replacing the old generation. But at some point in the future, even Luffy's time will come to an end, and his generation will be replaced by a newer one, continuing the never-ending cycle. This video is part 1. The second part will be about what might come after Luffy. Based on Oda's philosophy, we will speculate about a possible new generation and the state of the One Piece world at the end of Luffy's journey. As always, thank you for watching the video. Please let me know what you think about the generational transitions in One Piece in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Part 2 is coming soon, so subscribe to my channel, and hopefully see you soon.